Good evening, guys. Welcome back to my channel. I would like to thank each and every one of you for sticking with me on this journey, and of course for all the comments in the comment section, the likes and the subscribes that you guys have been giving me. I do appreciate it. And then of course all the constructive criticism that we've been getting. Obviously that helps us just to try and improve this content that we're putting out there for you guys after all. So really keep those comments coming, keep the likes going, and yeah, let's get this community to be quite nice and large. You would have also noticed that I did a bit of a video with one of my mates from the US, Keith, and from the Fair Weather Rugby fan, and we obviously started a bit of a podcast which will be going on that trend outside the World Cup coverage, where we will be discussing everything and anything that's different and the same and everything to that effect between South Africa and the USA. And yeah, if you don't mind, you can also check out that type of content, but we are here to really discuss the rugby. And of course, going on my last video where I did mention who I thought would go through to the actual quarterfinals, this week we're looking at who I believe will from the quarterfinals win in those games, then push through to the semi-finals, and then of course eventually to the finals. And yeah, tonight we will be crowning who I believe would win this World Cup. Please bear in mind, guys, I'm not any type of form of specialist in this field. I'm really discussing all of this from a fan's perspective. And of course, everybody knows that the South African fans are quite crazy, and I consider myself one of them. And yeah, at the end of the day, we're going to really have a lot of these things really by heart, where we won't maybe follow our mind as much, but more the heart. And then on others, we'll obviously use what we believe is to be true, giving some thought pattern to it, and we'll obviously discuss that tonight. So I know this intro is a bit long, so let's get into what we discussed the last time. We did in the last video say that the guys that I believe would actually follow through to the quarters in Pool A, I did mention that I believe that New Zealand would finish top of the log and France second. I just do believe that, you know, you can never keep the Kiwis down. They tend to come back at you with a massive ferocity, and so I do believe that this game they will try and make a statement and show their intent for the World Cup. Of course, a lot of people say that France is the favorites, and I can understand the reasoning behind it because they are in their home country, being the hosts, and I do also understand the other reasoning behind it is that they've actually got a fantastic team at the moment. They're higher ranked than New Zealand. They actually have a couple of players that really has got some X factor. They're good in their front rowers. They've got good people on the bench as well. We saw this when Ramos had to step in, and you know, so they do really have a good team, and you can't really go wrong. I mean, this is just my prediction. At the end of the day, everybody can have their own predictions, and I don't think in the top 5 countries in the world that you can really go far off by going one way or the other. To be quite frank, I mean, if you choose France, you could be right. If you choose New Zealand, you could also be right. I think a lot of people say that France may be by 55% the favourites, and New Zealand by 45%. But you know, I think personally, just because I've got quite a lot of history with South Africa playing New Zealand all these years, I do think that New Zealand will bounce back. And I know they did have a bit of an injury scare now with Jordie Barrett, so of course that's quite a big loss for them. But both teams have really been going through some injuries, so it's really going to be who pitches up on that day. Then on the Pool B, we did obviously say in the last video, well, I did say that South Africa will top that pool and Ireland will be second. And I know a lot of people would second guess that as to why, because Ireland is really ranked number 1 in the world, and for good measure and for good reason. So because I mean they've been showing in the last 2 years constantly how consistent they are. They've been playing against some of the top-ranked countries in the world and came out as winners. And really, they do stand a chance to take this World Cup just as much as any of the other four players that or teams that I think that could go through. So I just with my heart, the way that it seemed like in the last two games, like South Africa has really got that cohesion back, which they were lacking, which I was complaining about in some of my previous videos because of the chopping and changing of players. So it's just that I think they're going in with a little bit more confidence, with their tails up, and having a bit of a different X-Factor game than what they used to have in the past. I feel like they would actually go through. Ireland's been a little bit flat in the last couple of games, albeit they were playing in the last game their second string team. But yeah, I think also with their fly half returning for the first time after a couple of months being off, he's obviously going to want to prove himself, and the team is obviously going to want to do something for him as well and for themselves. And of course they want to get rid of that stigma of them not progressing to or past the quarters, even though I don't think that's relevant in these days, because I mean they've shown how they can win New Zealand in New Zealand, they can beat them, and they beat us, and I mean they beat quite a lot of countries and the Six Nations as well, so they've been doing pretty well. And it's just, I'm thinking with my heart and a little bit with my head. I do believe that we've got a very strong team and very strong contenders at the moment. So I believe that South Africa would go there in first place, and Ireland, of course, in second. In your Pool C, I do believe that there was some bad news delivered today in Muntz getting an injury and being ruled out of the World Cup. So Fiji was my first placed team. I'm having a little bit of second guessing in myself now after that injury, but I guess that was to be expected, because there was going to be injuries from all teams, I'm sure. But Fiji in themselves, I put them at first place, and then I had Wales second, purely because of the 0-5 out of 5 history of Australia in the last couple of games. Look, I mean, I did see them get some ascendancy in some areas of the game, and in certain spurts of the game, but overall I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on in that team at the moment, and they do certainly have some good talents in that team, but I just don't think they're gelling just a minute. And I do believe that maybe this team can really build for the next World Cup, but I don't think they are going to do anything right this minute. Georgia, I do still believe, is a bit of a dark horse, so we'll see where they go. They might upset some of those teams. And then, of course, I said Wales is second. Wales obviously will have some of their key players back, and I know their coach, he really knows how to coach these people. We'll see how that goes. And then, of course, under Pool D, Argentina, I still have a feeling in my heart would really go through as the first placed people in Pool D. And then, of course, I said Samoa for an upset. Obviously, we do know that England still has a chance, and that first game really is going to be a bit of a difficult one, not having their captain in the team. But at the end of the day, I'm sure England's going to also be able to grow within this World Cup. So we'll see how they go along in this journey that they're going to be following. I think it's going to be a step too far for them, but stranger things have happened. They've played in I believe it was 2007, where we resoundingly beat them in the pool stages by 36-0, whereby they still managed to get through to the finals later on. So I mean, anything can happen. England has as good a chance as Samoa, has as good a chance as Argentina. I mean, England can maybe even top the pool. So it really depends who brings their A game that day. But I put Argentina for the first place, and I put Samoa for second place. And let's see how that goes. I mean, at the end of the day, we really can't. You can't really go wrong. Pool C and Pool D is really difficult to call at the moment. A lot of the guys have been struggling on form, and injuries have been plaguing all teams, it appears. So at the end of the day, let's see how that goes. So that sets up the quarterfinals as follows. The quarterfinal 1, That would be then Fiji versus Samoa. As it stands, I had Fiji for the win. I might have to rethink that now with their injuries, and the way Samoa played really has been really impressing me, albeit against a second string Irish team that they really seem to have some cohesion going. But I'm going to stick with my initial guns, and I'm just going to say I believe out of Fiji and Samoa that Fiji would walk away with the win. On the quarterfinal 2, that would be South Africa versus France, and of course I'm wearing the green and gold, and I'm using my heart in my prediction when I say I believe that South Africa would go through. It's unfortunate for France that they have to be kicked out at this point in the game, but being the hosts, I believe there would probably be some riots. But yeah, at the end of the day, I do believe South Africa would win that game. I think we do have it in our team to be able to take that team down. I do know that we did play the last game against France. We lost. However, I do believe we were still very much in building phases, where it seems like our team is really now starting to gel together, and things really starting to look a little bit up and up. And winning that Pool B against Ireland and Scotland, being some of the strongest teams in the world, I think South Africa is really going to have their tails up and give France a good go. Quarterfinal 3, Argentina versus Wales. Unfortunately, I don't think Wales will progress at this point. Argentina, I would say, would take the win. Of course, Argentina being south versus north in Wales. Argentina's been actually playing very good rugby. Yes, they don't have the best of historic wins in the last couple of years against the Southern Hemisphere teams specifically, but they did last year beat New Zealand. They've also beaten Australia. They've obviously come close to us in our one game in Johannesburg, I believe it was, where they came within 1 point, only to of course lose later on in their own home turf. But I do believe that they got it in them to be able to topple Wales. Quarterfinal 4, New Zealand versus Ireland. I here went with Ireland because for the same reasons I mentioned earlier. They're the number one ranked team in the world for a reason. They seem to have had New Zealand's number this last while New Zealand was under Fozzie. So yes, I do believe that Ireland can do it, and I therefore selected Ireland to go through. New Zealand seems to slightly be a little bit off the pace at the moment. Of course, they did in the previous game, after this last game before the last game that we had, they did actually play quite a good game. They beat South Africa resoundingly against a team that was in their country for many more weeks than they themselves were. So better prepared, better rested, better acclimated, and they still managed to put the W. So it's going to be a tough game, but I do think that Ireland's got it in them to put the W on them. Then that sets up our semi-finals as follows: Fiji versus South Africa and Argentina versus Ireland. Fiji will be happy to get to the semi-final. I can't remember if they actually ever before gotten this far, so it will really be some feather in their cap for them. But unfortunately, I don't think they have it in them to really beat South Africa. South Africa's gameplay, I just think they can match them up front. They've got some very good back players. Our wings are phenomenal. Our center pairings at the moment is just, it's something else to behold, which is something to say, because I mean we had Lukanyam just before, and he himself is just a fantastic athlete. So saying that, I do believe South Africa would go through, and then of course we have the Argentina-Ireland game, and I do think that Ireland will beat Argentina. Argentina is, I think it's just a step too far for them. They of course do have a good front rowers. They got a fantastic boot in Boffelli, but Ireland I think is a more well-rounded team, really physical up front. They got Johnny Sexton really marshalling them from that fly-off position. So if Johnny Sexton does in fact manage to play in the semi-finals and not get injured, I do believe that they would have quite a comfortable win in that game. And then that, of course, sets up the final, Ireland versus South Africa. Now, it's really number 1 and number 2 in the world. South Africa already beat them in the pool stages, and I do believe that there's going to be lots of options in terms of injuries by this time, all these back-to-back games, and South Africa having quite a depth in their team. Not to say that Ireland doesn't have any depth, but I just think that South Africa has just got a like for like in every single position. Almost, it might not be as much in Manie Libbok having a good enough backup, but I do believe every other position we've got more than sufficient backup to be able to put an A team on the field, in my opinion. So, and of course we've got that bomb squad that really outdrives probably just about any country in the world, or are able to on their day. So I'm gonna go be very patriotic, as I would of course be being a South African supporter, and say that South Africa takes the final for a 4th time, and becoming world record holders for most World Cup wins in history of Rugby World Cup. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how these things go. Anything can happen, really. Look, once again, as I mentioned earlier, this is really just an opinion piece. I don't take anything away from Ireland or Scotland. Scotland has a fantastic team, and they might even beat us this weekend. But I'm going to still put the money on South Africa because, of course, I am South African. I'm very proud of that fact. I'm proud of the Springboks. And of course, on the flip side, we do actually have a very fantastic team, and you can't really go wrong backing your own team, especially if your team is in the top 5 in the world at the minute. So New Zealand, good chance for them. France, good chance for them. Scotland, Ireland, South Africa. It's anybody's game really with this setup on these pools, more so than any other World Cup, I would say. So well, let's see. Well, tell me what you guys think. Who do you think is going to end up in the final? Who do you think is going to be dark horses and kicking out some maybe major player in the World Cup? I'm quite interested to see, and I'm very excited to see the starting games. So I'm of course going to be watching the New Zealand and France game on Friday. I'm very excited about it, and South Africa being in a very similar timeline to where the games are being played. We're very lucky in that regard. I know some of our guys in New Zealand and Australia, they want to pull their hair out because they're really going to be missing some games unless they can function without any sleep. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, guys, tell me what you guys think. Tell me in the comment section, who do you think is going to win the World Cup? Who do you think is going to get into the finals? And maybe who's your player that's going to be maybe the player of the tournament? I'm going to go put myself on a limb here, out on a limb here, and I'm going to say breakout player of the tournament being Kanan Moody. I'm going to say Kanan Moody for sure. That guy's just got some pace on him. He's got some X factor. It's like he plays the game in slow motion. And then, of course, when we consider who's going to get the most tries, maybe the world record's going to be broken of 8 tries. I believe it's 8 tries. Who do you think is going to break it? I think it's going to come from either New Zealand or France, just because of the way their pool is ranking. I do believe that maybe one of the France wings, I think the France wing will probably take it. I can't remember his surname now. But that guy's also got some pace and some X factor, and he seems to always find himself in the right position. So I think he might actually go after that world record, purely because of the other 3 teams. No disrespect to Italy, but I don't think they really stand a chance this year. So yeah, they might put some big scores against those teams, the other teams in their pool. So yeah, let's see how that goes. I'm quite excited. I'm quite interested to see how this plays out. Of course, I'll be doing another team pick reaction on Friday after we've seen who the South Africa and the Scots have selected for their teams. we'll do a reaction on that. So I'll look forward to seeing you guys in that video. And then on Sunday, I might do a live of the Rugby World Cup game of Springboks versus Scotland. I'll have a talk to Keith from Fairweather Rugby Fan. Maybe he wants to do some collab on that. But if he doesn't, then I might even do it myself. We'll see how that goes. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. And have a fantastic evening and good night.